There's been a lot of discussion recently about Caitlin Clark and her impressive career in college basketball, especially due to the repeated and sometimes false statements made by Sherly Swoopes, one of the most well-known WNBA legends. This rivalry between Swoopes and Clark has garnered a lot of attention in recent months, especially after Caitlin Clark surpassed records and expectations with her exceptional performances. However, the reactions to her achievements have been mixed, with some questioning the validity of her success. Swoopes started her attacks on Caitlin by making some pretty controversial statements about Clark's record and the way she achieved her accomplishments in college basketball. A central theme in her comments was the claim that Caitlin Clark didn't break the record for most points in NCAA women's basketball in a legitimate way. Swoopes questioned whether Caitlin's record was truly meaningful, arguing that Caitlin had more time to break it, which made her achievement less impressive. This argument suggested that Caitlin, in some way, had an unfair advantage in comparison to previous record holders. Swoopes even went so far as to say that Caitlin should have broken the record within the same amount of time that the previous record holder, Kelsey Plum, did. Swoopes pointed out that because of the extra eligibility granted during the COVID pandemic, Caitlin had more time to break the record, and thus, in her eyes, Caitlin's record was not as valid. However, this claim was easily debunked. Caitlin Clark played just 4 years at Iowa, without using her COVID-19 year for an additional season, which is a common misconception among those who criticize her. Moreover, Swoopes' criticism of Caitlin's record was also based on a number of false assertions. For instance, Swoopes claimed that Caitlin Clark took an excessive number of shots per game, citing 40 attempts per game, which was a completely exaggerated number. In reality, Caitlin averaged around 20 shots per game during her college career. Her scoring efficiency was one of the main reasons for her success. Caitlin managed to break records, while maintaining a level of precision and control on the court that few players have matched. To claim that her success was the result of reckless shooting was misleading and an unfair characterization of her abilities. In addition to her criticism of Caitlin's scoring methods, Swoopes made another disparaging comment about Clark's age, suggesting that Caitlin had a significant advantage over younger players due to her age. Swoopes argued that Caitlin's experience at the college level, combined with her age, gave her an unfair edge, making it easier for her to dominate. Swoopes even claimed that Caitlin was playing against much younger players, suggesting that this helped her to perform at such a high level. This argument was also quickly refuted by the facts, as Caitlin Clark was just 22 years old at the time, and not as much older than other players as Swoopes implied. Swoopes' attacks on Caitlin Clark became even more outlandish as she continued her criticisms. In one instance, she stated that Caitlin was essentially a ball hog, taking away opportunities from her teammates. She suggested that Caitlin's success was not because of her talent or hard work, but because she was focused solely on scoring. Again, this was an unfair assessment. Caitlin Clark was known for being a well-rounded player. She wasn't just a scorer, she was also an excellent playmaker. Throughout her career, Caitlin demonstrated an ability to create opportunities for her teammates and distribute the ball effectively. Her assist numbers were just as impressive as her scoring records. What makes these attacks on Caitlin particularly noteworthy is the fact that Swoopes not only questions Caitlin's achievements, but does so with a variety of false information and inaccurate numbers. This led many fans and experts to believe that Swoopes wasn't really looking at the facts, but rather criticizing Caitlin for personal reasons. In fact, it quickly became clear that many of her statements simply weren't true. These comments seemed to stem from a place of personal animosity, rather than any real understanding of Caitlin's achievements. Another striking feature of Swoopes' attacks on Caitlin Clark was the fact that Swoopes had a history of making unfounded claims about other players. She made similar arguments about Caitlin's predecessor in breaking records, Kelsey Plum, and other prominent figures in women's basketball. This pattern of behavior suggested that Swoopes may have been more focused on protecting her legacy than offering fair and accurate assessments of current players. As time went on, the public began to take note of how Swoopes had continuously downplayed Caitlin's extraordinary achievements. Instead of acknowledging her as one of the top players, in college basketball history. The backlash from Caitlyn's supporters grew stronger as they realized that Swoopes' critiques were based on misinformation and unfounded criticisms, and they began defending Caitlyn against Swoopes' harsh words. Fans of Caitlin Clark pointed out that far from being a ball hog, Caitlyn was a versatile player who led her team in many facets of the game, including assists and rebounds. However, the real low point in the story between Swoopes and Caitlyn came when Swoopes once again spoke negatively about Caitlyn in a public podcast. In this podcast, she questioned Caitlyn's value to her team, stating that other players like Katie Lou Sandelson were much more valuable than Caitlyn. She argued that Caitlyn was only successful because of her strong supporting cast, and that other players like Katie Lou would be equally dominant in a similar situation. But these arguments, too, were deeply flawed. Caitlyn had proven herself to be a crucial part of her team's success and had helped lead her squad to greater heights, which was not the case for many other players. Swoopes also made the point that Caitlyn's team was strong, which made her performances more successful. But she failed to recognize the synergy between a great player and a great team. It is not easy to lead a team to success, even with strong teammates. Caitlyn's leadership on and off the court made her a standout player, and many of her assists and plays showed that she didn't just dominate the ball, but was also a key figure in her team's offensive strategy. By dismissing her contribution in this way, Swoopes was doing more than questioning Caitlyn's skills. She was downplaying her leadership abilities and the impact she had on her team's success. These attacks and the repeated questioning of Caitlyn's records and achievements, however, did not sit well with Caitlyn's fans or the basketball community at large. There's been a growing number of people who believe that Swoopes' criticism stems more from vanity and jealousy than from objective analysis. This became especially apparent when reports about Swoopes' past as a coach at Loyola University surfaced. It was reported that Swoopes was under investigation due to mistreatment of players. In light of these recent developments, Caitlyn Clark's fans have started looking at the situation from a different perspective. They've perceived Swoopes' attacks on Caitlyn as unjustified personal attacks and have begun to examine Swoopes' own past more closely. They have not only debunked the false information about Caitlyn, but also uncovered Swoopes' past issues as a coach. The fact that Swoopes is under investigation for mistreating players and facing criticism from many of her former athletes has put a new spin on her behavior towards Caitlyn. In conclusion, the controversy surrounding Sherly Swoopes and Caitlyn Clark is much more than just a sporting rivalry. It also reflects the challenges that many great athletes face when their achievements are surpassed by the next generation. Instead of celebrating Caitlyn's accomplishments and seeing her as an inspiring example, Swoopes seems to feel compelled to defend her own legacy while downplaying Caitlyn's remarkable feats in women's basketball. This ongoing conflict continues to divide opinions, but one thing is clear: Caitlyn Clark has earned her place in basketball history and will continue to be remembered for her extraordinary contributions to the sport. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the like button. See you next time.